Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast, the podcast for those that are curious about what's possible inside their four walls. Before we get into this episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors that make this all possible. How healthy is the storage in your warehouse? Have you ever walked the aisles looking for rack damage, empty pallets, or hanging pallet wrap? I know I've spent too much time doing that in my ops career. Now, there's a better answer from Dextery. Storage Health is their AI-powered check that runs with every robot scan that can detect damage, safety hazards, and hygiene issues across your warehouse at every height. Think damaged racking, pallet defects, tipped items, hanging shrink wrap, or damaged goods. Easily detected and alerted by Dextery's AI-powered platform while their robot scans your aisles. Stop missing these critical ops items and put Dextery's Storage Health to work for you at Dextery.com. That's DEXORY.com. Thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get to the podcast.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast here at Modex 2026. And joining me in our booth today is Collin Russell from TGW. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what he's seeing out here on the floor, some of the challenges he's hearing in the industry. And we're also going to talk specifically about the grocery, cold storage sector of the industry as well. So, Collin, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Definitely. Happy to get you here. Happy to talk to you. Enjoy talking to your colleagues as well over the years. So interested to get your perspectives on things as well. So it's Modex Day 2. So why don't you give us kind of a little bit about your perspective on the show and kind of maybe some of the stuff you've been hearing or seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So day one, obviously a lot of people are just starting to fly in. I myself flew in on day one. I wasn't part of the crew that was here on Sunday.
Yeah.
But no, it was great. On Monday, you see a lot of people walking around the show, trying to explore what options they have in terms of automation. And granted, you have a lot of providers out there right now, both OEMs and integrators alike, and of course, other software companies that have a presence here. And, you know, it's great to get a chance to chat with them and understand what they're trying to put out into the market, what problems they're trying to solve, whether it be split case or full case handling. And yeah, it's been good to connect with a few new companies, but obviously the big players are here, as well as TGW, but it's great to have a chance to speak with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And great to hear that as well. And certainly, as you mentioned, there's a ton of providers out there. I mean, the floor is like flooded. It's massive here, right?
We're all fighting for the same people.
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully we keep it civil out there on the floor. I haven't seen any like fisticuffs yet, but who knows? We still got 2 days to go, right? So
that's after hours.
Yeah. for sure. So great to get you here, and you're with TGW. So tell us, maybe for people that aren't familiar with TGW, how does TGW fit into the mix of this crowd here?
So I would say we're a part of the big five, but in terms of TGW, we are an OEM, manufacturer and provider, but also more importantly, an integrator.
Yeah.
And some of our key segments that we implement into are like fashion and apparel, and more importantly, food service and grocery retail.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we tackle on all the split case and full case kind of projects. So they can range anywhere between, I would say, smaller projects from the $5 to $10 million range all the way up to the very complex systems that are, you know, pushing $150, $200 million that some of these legacy integrators that we also compete with go after.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, interesting there. And let's talk a little bit about kind of that food service grocery side, right? Because that's kind of your specialty, right?
Mhm.
So let's learn like a little bit about that. I mean, I guess what is happening in that field now? I mean, has there been any kind of changes, especially since we've seen more like grocery delivery pickup too as well, and even more, food products, whether they're refrigerated or frozen now, getting e-commerce attention too as well. I mean, has that shifted the way some of these companies are looking at automation?
It has tremendously. So not only are they trying to do some of their legacy sites, a lot of these brownfields that they need to revamp, but also they're evaluating their entire supply chain as we speak right now and trying to open up some new greenfields. Now, granted, is that a consolidation effort or are they trying to expand into new markets? The list goes on why they're exploring this, but more importantly, they're trying to alleviate the labor issues that they're having internally, especially within their frozen temperature zones, because they have a high turnover rate in there. Not too
Sure.
many people want to sign up and work in minus 15 degrees
Yeah,
Fahrenheit.
not too many people love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's literally bone chilling work when you're in that environment. I've walked a ton of those warehouses. It's painful if you're not properly dressed for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so switching gears. So with the full case automation, obviously there's us and quite a few others that can play in that space, but they're also evaluating, I would say, kind of smaller kind of sites like micro fulfillment,
Sure.
more or less. And that's specifically geared towards grocery retail to putting something in the back of the store, which you would see like an auto store or an Ocado, just one of those cubic solutions.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic product to put in there. But where we play is in the distribution centers.
Okay.
And that has been a massive push. I know there's been some management change ups with some of these new, I wouldn't say new, but existing legacy companies like with Kroger and Albertsons. And now there's been a big push internally to explore automation for their warehouses to help alleviate not only the labor side, but also pump more volume out of their warehouses. But more importantly, even with food service, get more efficient on their routing, save on the transportation side of it. And by doing so, they're able to service more customers that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's an interesting sector, right? Because there's, a lot of vulnerability to the product in itself, right? I mean, it's perishable, right? Or if it's frozen and it defrosts, obviously that impacts the quality. You can't deliver that to the
Then they have
customer.
to toss it out if that happens.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about, from an automation perspective, like how do you, I guess, build the automation, or how do you make sure that the automation is, making sure that it's maintaining those levels that are needed, and also, doing FIFO if it's needed, or keeping track of expiration dates and things like that. How does that get worked into the project, and how do you make sure that the automation is being intelligent about that?
So that I would say is a little bit geared more towards the software side that's running in the background. That's outside of my expertise.
Okay.
But we do build that in, especially when we're designing these systems. However, when it comes to the FIFO method, I mean, obviously we want to make sure that the product gets on there correctly. Whenever we palletize it, once it's out the door, it's matched to the exact route that it's going to be going onto the truck. And then of course to the, location where it's being dropped off, whether it's a restaurant or if it's at the back of store, or if it's going to be at, a grocery retailer like an H-E-B, their back of store, to then be depalletized and put onto the shelf. But whenever we're designing these, obviously we have a massive team that evaluates all the data that has been given to us by whichever the food service or grocery retailer. We'll compile that, we'll put it together on a overall system design, pricing, what have you. We'll bounce ideas back and forth on how we're actually going to deliver it whenever it's actually being installed. But more importantly, how we maintain it is how we guarantee those rates. So our LTS, or lifetime services contracts, that's been a huge part of maintaining these systems. Now, granted, there's a good, better, best scenario, but the best scenario is, hey, let us manage it. That way, if this, a conveyor goes down, or if there's a jam, or if there's a palletizer that goes down, you're not suffering. The system doesn't fully shut down. So in that scenario, we're able to more or less still continue to operate. However, it's maybe at 90% capacity. It's not fully shut down. So I know there's a big stigma around shuttles and whatnot, because once you lose an aisle, oh my God, you lose everything. Yeah. But with ours, you only have to shut down a certain, just call it level or layer. So you only lose 6 shuttles instead of the entire aisle. Yeah. So with that being said, whenever we design these, we like to build in that redundancy throughout the entirety of the system. So you're not married to just one aisle, one palletizer, one set solution. because at that point you're just introducing a bottleneck. So that's how we more or less kind of alleviate those pain points. But whenever we're designing these, we're also keeping the customer's issues in mind of, if I'm going to be delivering to this site or this location, it better meet that outbound schedule. Otherwise, we're going to be liable.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty interesting to hear, kind of the shutdown of only part of the aisle, right? To be able to do that. But you also mentioned the lifetime services in there as well. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like what is that exactly?
So I'll use an example. So one of the projects that we are working on. So we'll call them technicians that are out there on site 24/7. Now, granted, depending on the size of the overall system is going to dictate how many personnel from TGW is also going to be there. Now, granted, it could be a kind of a marriage in between us and the customer that, hey, not only will we manage it, but also we'll train your people up to be able to manage it at a later date.
Sure.
But then there's also I mentioned the good, better, best scenario. So then there's other scenarios to where, hey, we will train you in the beginning. And then obviously you'll have a hotline available to you 24/7, but that covers all maintenance to the system itself, both software and mechatronic, and also with personnel, we'll have them there at all times. So like I said earlier, it's just, you're not feeling the downtime as much as others would think, because if you're on an island and you're on your own, you need to have someone there to be able to manage this equipment. And not only that, you need to be able to PM it at a proper time, so it's not hurting your throughput throughout the entire system and throughout the entire warehouse. Yeah. So that's more or less how we kind of strategize with that. But I may be leaving out a few additional things that we offer in the LTS contract, but it's an all-encompassing deal set up to help the customer succeed, not only running that system, but also making sure that we meet the rates that we promised.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like a very important thing to highlight when it comes to automation, right? Because I think people, they think about, they may be here and they see some solution, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to put that in and, it's going to solve my problems and that's about it, right? But there's maintenance that goes into that. I mean, it's mechanical, right? There's moving parts and things like that need to be maintained. So when you approach a project like that, I mean, how do you factor in, or how do you, talk to the customer and make sure like they're prepared to be able to either do lifetime services or, have the proper facilities staff or maintenance plan around that equipment that they're about to invest in?
Yeah, so we'll typically sit down with them, just analyze exactly what their operations, headcount looks like even at this moment. And then, hey, how many people do we need to train and get them up to speed on the technology? How familiar, are they with the existing technology that's already there? And if it's fully manual, obviously they don't have any experience with it. But with our system, the beauty of it is it takes no time to train them. But in terms of taking product out of the system and also putting product in, but when it comes to maintaining it, that's a whole different story.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
We typically have a certain time frame, whether it's a month or 2 months, however long we need to stay on to make sure that everybody's trained up, to make sure that they know what they're doing and they're not going to mess up the equipment or hurt themselves in the process.
Yeah.
But that's all a part of the initial design phase. But then after the fact, we still stay on as like a helping hand to help them, I would say, stay up to date with how the equipment runs. And of course, if they have any turnover, we can get them up to speed, or if their people are trained up enough, they can get them up to speed as well.
Yeah, interesting. And I think that's an important part to note, right? An important part to plan too, as you're going through that automation steps and automation journey. So it's good to hear that you're prepping them to do that. Because I know I went through an automation project a long time ago in my career when I was running an operation, and we didn't necessarily have the plan for the maintenance and facilities. And this was like something very new to us. And it was a little bit of like a shock of like, oh yeah, now the installer is gone and now we don't have that support anymore. Like we got to figure that out. So I love that you're supporting that and offering some of those services to be able to do that. So I'm curious in the grocery or food service sector in particular, when it comes to automation, like, what are some of the, kind of missteps you see, or maybe things that you would advise people not to do when it comes to starting to bring automation into these operations and these distribution centers?
I would say everyone tries to push for fully automated systems, which is super great.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't necessarily need to go that route, even if you're just trying to dip your toe in. Sometimes it's better to do a semi-automated option.
Okay.
Or maybe a mix in between the two. So I've seen that fumbled a few times, but of course, fully automated TGW as well as other integrators, that's what we specialize in. We'll be able to design it from top to bottom. Fantastic. But also how you manage merging both non-conveyables also with the ones that can fit inside of the shuttle or whatever ASRS you're going to end up using. So merging those together and understanding how that process works is also paramount. And then merging the different temp zones is also super big.
Yeah.
But handling both full case and split case within the same system has also been kind of a niche that we excel at, but others it's a little tough. And then I want to say whenever you're designing these systems, you want to try to get as much volume into it as possible in terms of case volume. So with us, it's helpful because we're doing multiple cases per tray. Others, it's just one case per tray. So you're kind of limited with that.
Yeah.
But I would say, full automation, fantastic, but don't feel like you're married to it and you have to take a huge chunk out of a $80 to $100 million CapEx project. You can still explore some semi-automated options, dip your toe in, get a little bit more experience with the technology, and then at a later time, maybe upgrade it, which is what you can do with us. You can still maintain the older system while still implementing a new one. And then another one that I've seen come up quite a bit is managing these brownfield expectations on installation.
Sure, yeah.
Trying not to interrupt your current operations while you're also putting in a cold storage environment. Maybe it's an add-on to the facility. But what some people forget is whenever you're doing a cold storage installation, you have to do multiple commissioning stages. Because you got to do it at ambient temperature. Yeah. And then once you're done doing it ambient, you got to drop it down to whatever degrees it needs to be. We'll just say for argument's sake, minus 15 degrees. Then once it's at temperature, you have to go back in and recommission it because all of that steel shrunk and you don't want to have a loose structure wiggling about when you have those shuttles on there. Yeah, yeah. So that extra time, some people forget to mention that during the implementation process or the commissioning process. I've seen that be a big gotcha as well. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. And that's interesting to think. I mean, I never thought about that the steel is going to contract or you're shrink, talking about huge runs of, rack. And then when it's all married together and put it down to that temp, you'd be surprised how much steel can shrink. Yeah. Wow. That's super interesting to think about. And so let's talk a little bit about the fully automated side a little bit, right? Cause you mentioned that, people often want to go after fully automated, but they don't necessarily need all that. Right. So maybe what is an indicator or what is a point where it makes sense to go after fully automated? Fully automated is, in my opinion, once you break past the threshold of, all right, our manual labor cannot get any more efficient. Yeah. We have reached, maximum capacity on the volume. This is as much as we can physically do out of here. And I've seen some people, they'll throw just a Band-Aid at it. It's all right, maybe we can just add more rack, add more people, and that's good for now, but it's not a long-term solution. But doing it fully automated, yes, it has its benefits once you reach or surpass that threshold. Sure. But until then, I've seen some operations to where they're still picking very efficiently for a manual operation. So do you need to throw a fully automated system at it? Not necessarily. Maybe you can find something that could help maybe palletize a little bit better, or maybe just store more product vertically just because it's taking too much time for the forklift or, what have you, for someone to go up and down the aisles to pick every single case individually. Okay, that can be explored. But even then, you have to make sure you're hitting that ROI that we like to see, which is typically within, 3 to 5 years, depending on the size of it. Yeah. But speed I've seen is more or less the biggest thing. It's not necessarily replacing the people that are doing it. It's just the speed of the product getting out and getting it palletized and getting it on the truck. So increasing the amount of trucks that are going outbound, or how many routes you can actually service within that same truck, but also how fast can you load said truck? Yeah. So that's also a big one. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting to look at that because, I've had some conversations where, people are like, oh, I'm waiting until I can be fully automated and stuff. I'm like, there's other steps you could take along the way, right, to get there. But talk to us a little bit about because when you say fully automated, I mean, there's obviously, this conversation that's hovered around the industry for a long time about the dark warehouse or the lights out warehouse, right? I mean, when you say fully automated, I mean, is that what you're talking about? I like to call it so TGW, as we dubbed it, the one touch receiving. The only time you're ever touching it is when you're unloading the truck and loading the truck. The second it goes and gets inducted into the system, we scan it, we depalletize it, throw it on a tray, and after that, I mean, we own the whole process all the way from the moment you place that pallet on the induction station.
Yeah.
And then once the order's being built, whether it's a pallet specific to a store or specific to, another distribution center or cross-docking, what have you, as it comes back out, the only time you're touching it is after the pallet is already built, label slapped on it, and ready to ship out. So that's, in my opinion, a fully automated system. Now, granted, there's a few technologies out here that I've seen that's actually unloading the trucks.
Sure, yeah.
I feel like we're maybe a couple years longer until that's like a really robust system that has very few moving parts and won't break, because that's like the holy grail. If someone can figure that out perfectly, oh man, they'll be doing great. But once we have a solution like that to add on to that one touch receiving, so once we're unloading the truck and loading the truck, that's, in my opinion, truly fully automated. But even then, there's still a manual element to it to have someone unload the truck, at least right now.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's really interesting to see, and I agree. I mean, I think that unloading or loading process, is one of the hardest jobs probably in the warehouse. One of the most grueling, especially when floor loaded. Yeah,
and especially whenever you have trucks coming in at below freezing temp. I mean, are those grippers going to be trusted to grab a frozen box or a frozen set of goods and not slip or drop or damage the goods in the process? I mean, it's kind of iffy. Sure, you can do it with cases or eaches out of the truck, what have you, if they're floor loaded or, sitting on a pallet, but that's in perfect case scenario.
Yes. Yeah.
When it's coming in and it's not a great looking case because, you're stacking them on top of each other, they can be damaged. How do you mitigate that? So I think we're a couple years out from doing that, but I think that's going to be huge, even for us and across the industry, if someone can figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be a big unlock for sure. So now let's close it out here with let's give us like your number one. You can only pick one. Number one top pick or top piece of advice for people that are looking to automate, because I'm sure there are a ton of people here at this show this week that are looking to do so.
Man, number one thing is don't just buy a product. Really explore the solution. All of us are competing for the same stuff, and not only TGW, but also the other integrators as well. Be sure to do your research. Obviously, the customer knows their operations, what their ailments are, what they're trying to solve. But whenever you're evaluating an integrator, make sure that they truly understand your business, understand what your pain points are, understand the business case, and be able to walk you through the different technologies that are not only out there, but also the solution itself, how it's being built, how it's being implemented, what that commissioning process looks like. Be able to understand beginning to end what is going along with whatever integrator you're partnering with. And if you're comfortable with that, and obviously you're comfortable, with the man or woman across from you that's delivering the solution and the technology to you, then you can build the trust. You can understand, okay, they're not just selling me a product, they're selling a solution. So I would say that's probably my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. Definitely. I think that's really great. Make sure you have that trust and you're getting the solution, not the product. I think that's really, really important too as well. So Collin, appreciate you coming over here and talking with us a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry and some of what TGW is doing as well. If people want to connect with you or they want to learn more about TGW, what's the best way to do that?
I would say just reach out to me directly via LinkedIn or, my email. I don't know if y'all post that info on your page.
We can if you want us to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
I mean, just reach out to me or any one of my colleagues in the business development side or sales side, and we're happy to walk you through any type of technology that you want to explore. Obviously, TGWs would be preferred for us to talk about, but, we're happy to offer a consultative approach so that you can know at least what technologies are out there and what to expect, and not only just exploring the industry, but also the integrators themselves. But I know we've worked on quite a few projects across multiple industry segments, so we're happy to help anybody that has any questions.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com, including Collin's email. We'll put on there too as well, so you can blow up his inbox. And we'll put that in the show notes here as well. So Collin, thank you once again for joining me here in our booth, and hope you have a good rest of Modex.
You've You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.